Hey, I saw in your video that you said you had emailed me, but I checked back in my email and I didn't have anything from you, so I'm very sorry you didn't get the help you were looking for. If that ever happens again, if you don't hear back from me in 24 hours and there wasn't some sort of response that I was on, vacation or that I can't get back to your email, call the school, you can leave a message with my phone, anything like that. But if you don't hear back from me in 24 hours and it's not the weekend and it was like late Friday night that you sent me something, there's definitely something up. So, and if you sent me something over the weekend and you don't hear back from me Monday, then definitely reach out again and do it through phone. Okay. Um, as far as I look through your topology, and you have some decent things here as far as first pass. Um, I know based on your video this isn't accurate. Something's obviously happening when I'm opening it on my side, but the things that I was seeing is you were having some kind of interesting junctions. The topology wasn't really balanced in some points, and in some areas you weren't necessarily flowing with kind of the muscle group. So I want to kind of cover some of that with you. So it looks like you have a good handle on the tools at this point, and a good kind of understanding of edge flow. So I see you're able to decimate, so I know you kind of got that down. So I won't cover that. You're under 100,000 faces, so that's good. That usually works well with my laptop. Anything under 100,000. So we'll go ahead and make this surface live. I'm going to open up my modeling toolkit. Let's go ahead and dock that guy. Come on. There we go. And let's go ahead and quad draw. So I'm going to start with the face, but all these same kind of theories you can use all over the place. I'll tend to start with some of the more important sections, and I'll keep good track of kind of the count I'm doing things on, because it'll help blend shapes together more easily. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is understand what has to happen in that area and kind of how high res the movements are going to be. So if let's say your panda guy, right? If he was going to be like Rocket Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy, he's going to be hundreds of thousand polygons in the end. He's going to have some predetermined kind of wrinkles that could potentially come up in the face, and we're going to be very we're going to dig down deep in our thought process of exactly why we're making certain edge flow. If this guy's going to be more Kung Fu Panda, he's going to not have as much topology, and we're even going to kind of go over some of the shapes in an opposite way than we maybe would if we were making Rocket, right? So I'm going to cover this guy maybe somewhere in between, but a little bit more on the cartoony end of things. Okay, if you feel like you're going to push him more towards Rocket, let me know, and we can definitely jump up in the poly count. So what I like to do first is I'll a lot of times start with the eyes, and I like to do 8 around the top and then 8 around the bottom. Okay, and I don't count the center ones in that 8. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say this is our center one. So we don't have enough up top yet. So I'm going to start moving these, put one there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'll lay those in there, and I want my mesh to be nice and even. So I'm going to take some time, evening those out a little bit before I make my next moves with my polygons, if you will. Okay, so it's getting a little bit more balanced. I just want to get it close. I can always average this out, later on. So now what I want to do is below, along the eye, I basically want those points to match up. And what I'm thinking about, if this guy were to blink, I want those silhouettes to be able to match each other, right? So I basically want these points to kind of be able to blink down and align with the points below. So the distances down here don't necessarily have to be exactly the same, but kind of how they're lining up, if we turn this around, we want to see them lining up a little bit, okay? So after I have that, and I'm not going to make things exact here, I'm just going to kind of walk you through the process. I'll go ahead and I'll put in the points that are going to make my actual polygons. And I can go through, make those guys. Now something like the eyes is going to end up having eventually more polygons and details than elsewhere on the body. But we don't necessarily have to start out with a ton of holding edges. Your next option would be is you can either place these by hand, or I could start extruding an edge ring out from here, right? So I could end up selecting that edge ring and start moving outward from there. So for the next kind of region, if you will, is we're going to have like the nose area as well. Okay, so if we look at how these polygons are going to flow into areas, I'll want to keep some ocular loops here. So maybe I want to draw where that ring is going to start matching up with the nose and with the eyebrow, right? So I'm going to want to bring at least these three verts going across right here, and then maybe the rest of them can flow under the eyebrow to begin with. And then for under here, there's going to end up being kind of more polygons in the long run under there. So I want those shapes to be, a little bit more even. And then I can always come back here and just subtly relax those in-between points. So I know I have a nice kind of balance with those polygons. Right, so I'm getting a somewhat even distribution there. I can maybe even relax those guys just a little bit more, because I'm going to need more polygons coming out this way and to help, with this brow right here, right? So I'm okay with having kind of that balance right there. I'm just looking for nice, even kind of curves flowing out. So next, I want details to show up when he squints this brow. Okay, so I'm already thinking about keeping pretty standard to my size I've defined here, and I would just kind of trace around that brow. And I always think about, you need a minimum of 3 vertices to make a round curved surface. So any sort of detail you want to be able to have, as you're making emotional changes with his eyebrow for blend shapes and such, wherever that shape change has to happen, you need a minimum of 3 vertices to make that happen. So I'm kind of keeping that in mind, because I'd be doing my blend shapes later on, right? Or another artist might be doing the blend shapes later on. So I'm keeping in mind that they're going to have enough to kind of create those shapes. And let's say ends up maybe attaching right there. Okay. So now same thing, I'm going to kind of start arranging these, and I like to keep poly counts matching because it's going to make it easier for me to fill this in. So if I'm looking at, I have 2 polygons over here, 2 polygons over here, that means an edge is going to run down the center to keep that even. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 across the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 across the bottom. So I need 2 more up here. So all I'm going to do is maybe add here, and then even those out so they start matching with what's down here. So this one's going to go into here. And, you know, I can maybe wait till I get them all arranged to do this, or if I want to do it as I go so I know that they're lining up. There's no right or wrong with that. Looks like actually I'm not going to end up with enough. So those two will go together. I need one more here. There we go. So now if I cut an edge loop kind of straight through here, what did I do that? I don't need this guy. Right? I think that's... Yeah, cool. Now I think we're good. So if I cut through here, I can now take this. No, I counted something wrong. Okay, so it looks like make sure we delete edge to those, please. Okay, now that's better. Here, let's go back to quad draw. Alright, now we're good. So now I can just go through those two and those two. And then I can start using my relax. And you can see things are starting to slow down a little bit for me, so I may need to go through and delete some history because I've made some movements. But I'm just going to relax to even out that edge flow. Relax that a bit because I want to keep nice even polygons throughout. So I'm really looking at my polygon density and spacing here as I'm averaging this out and making sure it still follows the shapes of the head. So another thing that I didn't turn on because I was worried more with kind of helping you to figure out the edge flow and such, is I should have turned on my symmetry. Not a huge deal, but as of now I'm only getting kind of half the model. So from here, I want to kind of work on the nose next. So what I would usually do is, like, let's say follow these 3 over the bridge. Let's say that was the center line. And this is how you could have choices of density. I chose to put a point there, so I'm going to take this piece up and over, which will give me kind of that glabella shape I can, you know, play with later. And this gives me enough to start down the nose, but it's not going to give me enough to make the entire nose. So I would end up needing to potentially cut an edge loop in there, but I may want to wait to do that and work on the nose first because it's going to be a denser area. So I'm just going to kind of even out that density relax it a little bit, and then knowing I may need more than that for the actual nose. So I would look at the nose and say the most detailed area is down here, so that's probably where I would start, similar to how I started with the eye. I know I'm going to want to follow this shape. I know there's a shape down here I'm going to want to follow, so I'll probably start here. And there's a curved shape right there. That's weird. I don't know why that point jumped way out there. Alright, so right here. And then that is going to follow this surface. So again, I could trace or add all these first, but anywhere I have a curve, I'm going to need, 3 points to kind of make that happen, right? And every edge, every vertice matters, so we want to, take enough time with it that we're laying it down accurately. And this is where I can kind of connect it into that bridge potentially. So this would be the first one to meet up with that bridge. And then I just need to think of how I can fill in, this shape. So these polygons are probably going to be reserved to go to the center line. So I'm going to send those kind of up and over this direction. These guys, I can potentially go this way first. And this is a good reason why we want to keep them light at the beginning too. And now I see, to match up with the nose here, I just need one more edge loop here. And now I'm not going to have enough edge flow to support this shape. So I'm going to cut in 2 more there. And initially this is probably enough. I like to stay, again, somewhat loose at the beginning. So I'm going to go through and relax this to help me get my spacing more even. I might have to do some by hand. Make sure I'm flowing with the exact shape that I want. And then relax more. Right, but now this is flowing with that shape. I'm probably going to want to cut eventually one edge loop here to be used as kind of a holding line to bring out that detail. Now whatever this shape is underneath, I want to figure out. So I would need to look at your model because there's not enough for me to kind of determine what that shape would be, right? So I'm going to kind of make some assumptions or some guesses here about how that would flow back into the nostril. I have 2 edges here, or 3 verts, so I'm going to plug them in maybe right up here, and that'll leave this as the nostril. So we would just start, making our points, and again, however you want to do it, as far as if you want to make the polygon faces right away. I'm being mindful of, how many points I'm placing down. So I get the shape, but I'm also not changing the density too much compared to what's over here. So we'll want to even those out spacing-wise. Make any adjustments that relaxing kind of ruined. This right here is kind of a weird shape because now I don't necessarily have a spiral, but I'm not sure I like this No, the junction's okay. It needs to look a little bit more like this. So we have that under, oops, we have that under, and then this comes up and around. So that works. It's just there. That's where we're starting to get a more complex shape. And we're not having a radial loop going into the nose, so I'm going to want to make one so I can just extrude that in. So I'm just going to go zoom in here. Just going to go through every point there. You'll see how this ends up being a radial loop. So I'm keeping all quads, but now if I were to extrude in, that's a radial loop, or if I'd add an edge loop through there, I can get more detail for holding edges and stuff, right? So that's one way that we can get that radial loop. This we want to start all flowing down the face, so if he smiles, this acts like an accordion, so it can kind of go up and he can sneer. This is the cheekbone, so it's probably going to want to come around here as well. So I would say we would take maybe this first two to help us start moving down through here, and then this is where there would be a separation that takes place. So I'm going to go here, and by doing that, I can now take these through here, and I'm also leaving edges open that I can use to complete those ocular loops, right? So let me kind of punch through one more so you can kind of see that junction I just built. And that's going to start creating a star junction. So I want to be mindful of where I'm placing those star junctions. But this is in an area that's not going to be deformed a ton. It's right on a bony landmark, so we should be okay with that junction, right? But now I'm going to be able to start making these loops I need to complete that bone structure right here, and then I can take those out into the cheek. So I'm really kind of tracing shapes. You can see how I'm keeping more kind of even quads than what what you were seeing in yours. So I would just take a pass at this again. Maybe work through the head, and then we can get together online, or you can send me another video and we can kind of talk through the changes that you made before you approach the rest of the body. So I hope this was helpful. Again, reach out. If you send me an email, you don't hear back in 24 hours, call me, because I definitely am on top of that stuff.